Hi everybody, it's Lori and I'm here to open up our vlog for the week of random library picks. Okay, so my TBR for this week is consisting of books that I have obtained from my library. I put in books all the time on hold that sound good. If I hear a booktuber talking about it, or if I see it at Barnes & Noble, or I see it while browsing on Amazon or Goodreads, if it looks like something that I think I'm going to enjoy, I will put it on hold at my local library. And then when it comes in, obviously I go pick it up and then add it to my TBR shelf. Sometimes those books, I can slide them in perfectly to the TBR for the week, and other times don't really fit into any theme for the weeks. And so I need to figure out how to read them because obviously it intrigued me enough to add it to the library list. So that is what I'm doing at the end of each month, final week of the month. We're going to try this and see how it goes and see if I like having kind of a random library hold type of situation. And so instead of waiting for a TBR maybe later in the year, I'm picking up and reading something that's intriguing me now. So let's see how that goes, and we'll figure out if that works well for upcoming months as well. The first one that I'm going to tackle for the week is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This looks like a very fun romp kind of a book with lots of action. We'll see how it goes. It's Veronica Speedwell in the 1880s, which is fun. Kind of a little bit on the run from some pursuers. She gets some assistance from a character by the name of Stoker, which always makes me think, the name sounds a little bit familiar, but I'm not sure if there's any relation there, but it intrigued me. I know a lot of people love this series. I hear a lot of people talking about it, and I want to jump on the bandwagon and see what it's all about. So this will be my first read for the week. Looking forward to this one. The next book I have been looking forward to, and I just read Ninth House, which was good. It was good timing, because I think people waited a couple of years, right? Was it a couple of years in between Ninth House and Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo? I'm super excited to read the sequel to Ninth House, where we have Alex. Her name is Galaxy, but she goes by Alex Stern, where she needs to break Darlington, who was her mentor at Yale, needs to break him out of hell. I mean, how hard could it be? I'm sure, it's only a couple of pages, right? I'm sure no hijinks ensue whatsoever. There's no danger, no pulse pounding action. I'm excited. I'm sure there's gonna, look at the cover. I know I'm in the camp of, I don't love this cover, but it probably makes sense. I'm sure it does. So more to come on that, but I'm excited to read the sequel to my beloved Ninth House. These will be read after work and on the weekend, so I'm not sure if I will have any time for anything else, because this one's pretty big too. This one is Thomas Perry Murder Book. This was completely like an impulse, wasn't a buy, impulse order from my local library based on a trip that I took to Barnes & Noble where I was looking at some of the new books. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about this on BookTube, which can be a bad thing. I'm not really sure. Interested to read the story and tell you all of my thoughts on it. Sounds like we have an ex-cop who's an investigator investigating a crime wave across the Midwest. There could be organized crime. That's what it kind of sounds like. And I'm not sure if he's working with or against the FBI and trying to solve these cases. Very interesting. I like that type of setup and trope, so we will see how this does. So these are the books that I have picked for this final TBR week in the month. I'm excited to get cracking on these and to give you my thoughts. So the next time I check in, I'll either be back with a wrap up of our first book here, Veronica Speedwell, or check in with you and give you a reading update for the day. Hi everybody, doing a check-in of A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. I haven't finished it yet. I am on page 228 of, let's see, I think it's like Yeah, 335, something like that. Approximate page number. I thought this would be going a little bit faster for me in terms of I'd be flying through the book. I also was totally wrong and thought that there would be nonstop action in here. Unfortunately, it is not the case. And I think that's what's caused me to bog down a little bit and not be as motivated to pick up the book as much. And it could be like expectation level was set like super high, set the bar really high. I started reading this and realized it was more of a slow burn. I feel like now I'm getting to the point where things are picking up a little bit. I know that a lot of this was probably some backstory of these characters. It makes sense, but you know, there was a whole part in the middle that I just didn't see why they were doing it. And now it feels like they're doing what they should have done earlier in the book. I don't know, maybe I'm just nitpicking. I like the characters, I really do. And I think it could be very interesting. She is a very strong female character and I really, really like her. And the fact that she doesn't care what people think. She's going to do what she wants to do. And I think that's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this tonight, I'm sure. Because like I said, now it's picking up where I'm like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen. So I can see I'm going to just fly through the rest of this book. And I will let you know what my thoughts are when I have finished. Good morning, everybody. I am back to give you my final thoughts on A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. I almost said by Veronica Speedwell. No. I don't know. For some reason, I have her name in there associated with the author, which, she's not. But we have our two main characters, Veronica and Stoker, who for most of the book are on the run from unknown forces that seem to want to bring harm to Veronica. After the death of her last guardian, Veronica decides that she's going to strike out on her own, which she's done in the past on her butterfly expeditions. But at the funeral of her guardian, a man reaches out to her, tells her that she's in grave danger. He offers to keep her safe. She trusts him, and then he leaves her with Stoker, and then, of course, gets murdered. So they're both like, what's going on? And why are you with me? But he is too chivalrous to send her out on her own. And they determine to work together to figure out what's going on. Why is she in danger? And he gets embroiled in the whole thing as well. And I even said this in the first part of this vlog here, that I thought it was going to be rollicking romp and nonstop action, pulse pounding, edge of your seat type of a book, and it wasn't. I really thought it would be a reminder of The Chronicles of St. Mary's by Jodi Taylor, which I am in the midst of reading that series, and so I really thought it was going to be similar to that, and it's not. It is much more of a slow burn type of a mystery. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a lot more action. Seems so out of character for Veronica and Stoker for what they did. They basically were kind of waiting, it seemed like, for something to happen to them instead of going out and trying to make something happen and come to a resolution by their actions. You know, forcing the hand of these people that meant to do her harm. And so in the middle, it just felt like it was so out of character for both of them, for, you know, what was going on in the action. At the end of this, now looking back on it, I can see that perhaps that whole section was setting up things for future books because it's a long running series, and perhaps the author had an idea for future, you know, books, and she needed to lay down the foundation. I can get behind that. I just really kind of felt like at the time, like, oh my gosh, okay, so come on, let's get going. You know, I read a lot of thrillers, and this was not that way at all. And I went into this with a little bit different expectations than I probably should have. Not to mention my expectation, which was totally dashed about Stoker. Like, what? He's not a vampire? Huh? He's not a time-traveling vampire? I know, I'm being silly, but I was like, with the name, I was thinking something is going to happen, right? No, it's not. There's no representation for vampires in this. Oh, well, so if you don't love vampires, you're fine with this series. But anyway, I would say overall, I will give this a 4. The next book that I started, I started it briefly last night. I didn't want to get too sucked in and then not be able to sleep. So I just started it. It is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. You knew I was going to read that book this week. The first chapter, I was like, what is happening? I was like, do I have to go back and read Ninth House that I just read last month? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm old. I'm really, really old. And for any of you youngsters that might be watching, it'll come for you. I'm like, what is going on? But then I realized, okay, so we had that, and it didn't have a chapter number, so I don't know if it was, anyway, had a month. And then we had chapter 1. And so then you realize that that was kind of a look into the future of what's going to happen. And so I was like, okay, wait. So it was kind of giving you like a preview of something that's going to happen. So I didn't miss out too much. There are a couple of things I'm like, who was that person again? So I have no doubt that it's going to come back to me as I go. But there were some characters that I was like, okay, who is that? I'm not sure who that was again, but it's going to come back to me as I read it, I am sure. So I'm really hopeful that that's not going to happen a lot, because I really loved Ninth House, and I really thought that, I mean, I didn't take notes. I'm not really a note taker when I read. Reminds me too much of grad school, so we're not doing that. I can't do that. Although I probably should have, because there are a lot of characters. It was very complex. It was very dense over many, many pages. And so perhaps I should have taken a few notes. I don't know. But I'm really excited to get cracking more on this book. I'm on page like 36. Alex has been a part of one ritual so far. She's already had something happen to her that she's like, what? I didn't know that could happen. So that was interesting already. So the action is already started. I am so excited. It's going to take me a little while to read this probably, because yeah, I'm working. But it already seems to be a book that I'm going to want to pick up on my lunch hour and read as soon as my day is over, and like relegate cooking to my husband, which he would love. So I will check back in with you as I read some more of the book and let you know what I think. Hello, everybody. I have finished Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I loved it. I loved it as much as Ninth House. I might have liked it a little bit more, and I'll tell you why. I think that Ninth House really kind of set up a lot of the background and the magic about our characters, about the different houses, about Yale, and it had a lot of background information. There was a lot to it, a lot to digest, and this seemed like it was a lot more action, which I really, really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. It was nonstop, which is what I was hoping for from the previous book that I read this week, A Curious Beginning, but this definitely checked all of the boxes for me in terms of the action sequences, the character development. We get to learn even more about the characters that were set up in Ninth House. We have some new characters. It was fantastic. I loved it. I don't want to give too much away. I will say I wish that there was going to be a very long-running series. I think I heard somebody saying that it was going to be a trilogy now, which makes me sad. But I will tell you, very rarely go out and buy books after I've already read them, because I don't typically reread books that often unless it's a favorite. I purchased both of these. Now they are coming today. So yes, I am super excited to add these to my collection, and we'll wait for the third book to come out. I was telling my husband last night, I'm like, is it gonna be like 3 years before it comes out? I'm gonna be so sad. It's gonna be hard to wait, but I will definitely go back and reread these before the next book came out. I put a little sticky note because I wanted to read something that was just really funny. There's humor in this too. I'm just gonna cut out who the character was so it doesn't get too long, but it says, a minute later, he was singing Under the Bridge in a passable falsetto. Alex didn't have the heart to tell him she'd gladly spend the next 2 semesters in hell if it meant never hearing the Red Hot Chili Peppers again. And she says something else later on in the book about hating the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which made me crack up. Don't hate them, but it just made me laugh. Thought it was cute. Not all hellish hijinks, for sure. There are some humorous elements in here, and really great moments of friendship, which I really, really liked. Alex building friendships and relationships with people in, her circle. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that we really all have our own demons that we have to battle. And I kept thinking about that throughout this book, that we have to figure out a way to work through those issues in our lives. And it just kept pinging in my brain as I was reading this book. So I highly recommend this book. Do I need to say I gave it a 5-star? Because I did. So I'm having to alter my TBR for the week a little bit because this book needs to go back to the library pretty soon. So I want to make sure, and I can't renew it because somebody else has renewed it after me. I definitely don't want to wait to finish reading it. So I'm going to add this one to my TBR for the week. It is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendricks. We have a brother and sister here who return home to their childhood home to kind of clean it up and potentially sell it. They haven't decided, but I'm anticipating that they are going to sell it after the death of both of their parents in an accident. The dynamic between the two of them so far, we have Mark and Louise. They are fighting, which is very common after a death. You know, there's high emotions. You know, everybody has a different way of handling that, and the way that they think their parents would want to handle their death and burial and distribution of their assets. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I am on page, 78, and the funeral has just concluded. I'm excited to continue going on in this book. I know there's got to be spooky puppets going on. Louise is trying to talk herself into believing that things are not happening that actually seem to be happening. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and I'll check back in with you as I finish the book. I have finished How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendricks. In this book, we have siblings, Mark and Louise, who have returned to their childhood home after their parents die unexpectedly and tragically in a car accident. I had heard people talking about this book prior and talked about the pandemic being the reason for the deaths of their parents, and that the reason that they had to come home to clean out the house and sell it was because they were in dire financial straits, and needed to do so. I don't know if that was in an arc of the book and has since been changed, but I will tell you, in my book, unless it was just like a brief sentence and I glazed right over it, that's not a highlight of the book. So if you're worried about the pandemic being talked about in here, don't be. The reason these two siblings have kind of come together after the death of the parents is obviously to kind of go through their belongings, their childhood home. They want to put it up on the market. Their real estate cousin, I believe it is telling them that the market is really good for houses in this area of this size. And so they need to clean it out. It's giving everybody really bad vibes, of course, because of all of the items that are in the house. Mark and Louise's mother was a puppeteer. She made most of her own puppets. I don't know if she made a lot of her dolls, probably, and just had a vast collection. She had a puppet ministry for their local church, and that's how she brought in some extra money to help the family keep afloat when the kids were little, before they could afford a TV. And so that's kind of how these siblings were raised and how they were entertained when they were children. Their mother made up these really vast stories and worlds of these puppets and these characters for them and kept them entertained as children. And of course, you have that element there that sometimes freaks people out when you think about puppets and stuffed animals. And the house is literally filled with them, so they need to clean it out. Unfortunate thing is, Mark and Louise do not get along. They have hated each other since they were kids. They fight about everything. Louise thinks Mark has always gotten his own way, and Mark thinks that Louise is always she has to be a rule follower. She's kind of a stuck up, kiss up kind of a person. And so they have their own sibling rivalry to get through as a part of this, and really kind of navigate the death of their parents and moving on from there. Did I feel like this was a horror book? Yes, but I thought it was kind of a campy horror. I wasn't particularly terrified by a lot of the scenes. Some of it actually really made me laugh. So there were times that I was reading this and I had to read passages out loud because it was just really funny. I ended up talking about this a lot with my family, and I often don't do that with books that I'm reading, but for this one, it really just stuck with me as I was reading it. I had a lot of fun reading this book, and so I talked about it probably too much. They were probably sick of hearing about this book. So like our two main characters, I have inherited the house that I am in currently from my parents. My mother died several years ago, and I will tell you, if this house had been filled with creepy, scary dolls, I would have noped right out of here. There is absolutely no way that would not have worked out for me. If I was being attacked by any type of taxidermied animal, clown, doll, puppet, doesn't matter, I would have figured out a way to crush it, burn it, scatter the ashes into the wind. I'm not really sure, but this was really kind of a campy type of fun horror to me than something that was going to keep me up at night. I will say, however, if you've noticed my prep in the window, I mean, how could you not? I tried to get my two sons to participate. Now, granted, one's 29, one's 23. Neither one of them would touch the doll. That was their grandmother's that was in the house. They were complaining of the spooky doll that was in the basement. They were like, just in case, we don't want to touch it. So apparently, the creepy doll scenario creeps out more people than it did me. So maybe this is a book that will really scare a lot of people. I thought it was fun, was humorous in places. It was heartwarming with the relationship between the two siblings as they kind of worked through some of their childhood traumas. Secrets that families keep was a big theme in this book. I really enjoyed myself. I'm going to give it a 4-star, but the more I think about it, the more I like it, truly. So I don't know. I thought it was really fun, and I'm looking forward to trying more books from this author. The next book that I'm reading is Murder Book by Thomas Perry. I have gotten about 152 pages in so far. So we have our ex-cop, Harry Duncan, who has been brought into a case of a crime wave that is sweeping Midwestern towns by his ex-wife, who happens to be a U.S. attorney. She wants him, as a former cop and now private investigator, to look into what's been happening to see if he can find a commonality between these cases, figure out if it's an organized crime ring, and bring her some more information so she can bring it to the government to say, hey, this is something that we need to quash right now. Here's where we need to focus on. Right now, it doesn't seem like, at least according to what she told him, doesn't seem to be a priority. And so she's looking at it, and obviously it's a priority for the people that it is happening to. She wants to put a stop to this crime wave, and she thought bringing him in would be the best way to make that happen. So he stops at a bar in Indiana, and a couple of thugs decide to shake him down, either steal his car or get him to pay for the protection of not having it stolen. So that kind of starts off his whole, involvement in the case. I was telling my husband, who happens to like books like this, it's like the old white guy book. I was like, sorry. But he happens to like Jack Reacher books by Leigh Child and the Mark Greaney Gray Man series. He likes that a lot. Camel Club, that type of book, and that's what this is reminding me of. It's definitely a departure from what I have been reading. It was calling to me from Barnes & Noble, so I thought I would give it a try. I'm going to continue to read it. It's catching my attention, and I want to find out what happens. I will say, typically, I would pick up a book from a female private investigator. Like, I love the Kinsey Milhone books by Sue Grafton. Those are amazing. I like those so much better, but I want to see what happens. He's a very smart character. He doesn't just go for a gun or punch somebody in the face. He is thinking the whole thing through before the situation happens. So I want to see what he's going to do to kind of wrap this all up and solve this case. I'm sure that a lot of things are going to happen. In the meantime, I'm a little bit less than halfway through, so I will do a check-in with you as I continue to read the book. Okay, so I'm here at the library to drop off my final book that I have finished for the vlog this week, Murder Book by Thomas Perry. I will say this was not at all what I was hoping that it was going to be. Last time I checked in was the case of Harry Duncan, where he was investigating a string of kind of like extortion attempts, I would say, some shakedowns of some local businesses in the Midwest. His ex-wife, who happens to be a U.S. attorney, asked him to investigate, and so he goes to a town in Indiana where, of course, the first place that he stops off at, he becomes the victim of a attempted carjacking or robbery or a shakedown to get him to pay for protection. And the whole thing just spirals from there. And I think I said this in my last entry. This is not my typical style. I typically do not read police procedurals of this type written by men. They tend to be a lot more, I don't know if I want to say cut and dry, and this was no different. I will say that this almost threw me into a reading slump. I was really irritated by the time that I finished it. I did want to finish it, so I mustered on and pushed through. I'm going to give this a 2-star. And I'll say the reasons that I chose the 2-star were because I felt like the characters were all extremely flat, one-dimensional characters. We didn't get to know them at all, so therefore we really didn't care about them. I didn't care about them very much at all. There were a lot of very improbable, implausible situations. I live in the Midwest, and there were so many times where our main character was stuck, supposedly stuck, on a road where he had to a 3-point turn and go back the way that he had come from. He was backing up on a freeway. This book was a lot of him investigating, and he was smart, definitely was very smart. Him investigating, driving, a lot of car chases, more driving. I feel like we could have subtracted 50, 75 pages, maybe 100 pages out of this book, gotten rid of a lot of the drive time and the car chases, which seem completely unnecessary to me. There are a lot of places that you can pull off, hide. I don't know. It just seemed really implausible to me that he kept having to do these 3-point turns and start over, go backtrack, go back where he was. The ending left me really scratching my head. And I will tell, like I said, I really felt upset at the end of the day finishing this book. It left me almost with an itch that I couldn't scratch. You know how sometimes if you have an itchy shirt and you can't figure out like why it's itchy? That's how I felt with this book. I can't quite pinpoint what was making me so irritated about this book, but I was hoping that the ending would be all worth it. It wasn't. I will not be picking up more from this author. The only reason I'm giving it a 2-star is because I did finish it. I think that there definitely is an audience for this type of book. My husband might really enjoy it. He tends to like books like this. It's just not my type of genre or writing style. So unfortunately, I'm ending the vlog on a really low point with a 2-star. So unfortunately, while the last book of the vlog was a 2-star, I've already kicked off in the next vlog with a stunner of a book. I'm excited to share that with you. My theme for the week is going to be the Buzzword Challenge by Books and Lala Kayla, where she picked Secret for March. All of the books that I have chosen have secret in the title. The first book that I've already read because I just needed something to cleanse the palate, I'm giving it a 5-star. So you're gonna have to tune in next week to see what I have chosen. I think I have some good books. I'm here at the library to pick up my last 2 for the vlog, and I'm excited to get cracking on the next book for the week and share my thoughts with all of you. So I hope you had a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody. So I know a lot of people are talking about the main items that are in the book, which are the spooky and creepy dolls and puppets. I will tell you, if there... That didn't work. You lied. Okay, hold on.